I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Welcome, everyone, to the Sinner After Show. We have such an exciting show today. We're going to break down Season 3, Episode 3, which I think is the most sinister episode.
Yes, there you go.
That's a tough word. Sinister episode of the season so far. I'm Emily May, one of your hosts tonight. So we are going to break down this episode, share all of our thoughts. We're going to have news and gossip, all the juicy gossip. We are going to, again, cover the most sinister moments that happened on this episode. We have babies that were born. We have Detective Ambrose is getting closer and closer to the answers, and Jamie is still battling those internal demons, and we find out a little bit more of what that means. But I am not going to do this alone.
Nope.
I have some partners in crime here. To my far left, I have Ashley Dior Jones,
Hello,
our
everyone.
resident scaredy cat and
I was so
future
scared.
Live with Ryan co-host.
Yes, that part.
And to her right, I have Nathaniel Nate Harris, who is our drama queen and self-appointed FBI director.
Yes.
Welcome, you guys.
I can find anything out.
You didn't find anything out?
I can find
Oh,
anything
you
out.
can?
Yeah.
Oh, so he's going to investigate even further.
Yeah.
I believe
Do you think
that.
you can take on Detective Ambrose?
No, Detective Ambrose is deep. 'Cause, like, some of these crimes, not even just today, in this season, but like the past seasons, like, dude, you did not have to dig this deep in this
He
situation. You
goes
could have let it
so
go.
deep.
He
It's like
goes
in
so
his.
deep.
It's like in his DNA.
Right?
Like he's got to get to the bottom of the
So
case.
what did you guys think of this
I love that about
episode
him.
overall?
I feel like I say this every episode. I was terrified.
You're always terrified. Let's just give that
like,
to you.
my heart was broken. There were parts that I actually did not watch. Like there were parts where I
Yeah, we'll
literally
get to
put my
that.
hands over my eyes. My co-host can attest to this because I couldn't watch what was happening. So it really affected me. And a lot of the things that they talked about, like this episode was a different one for me.
Yeah.
I feel different about it.
Yeah,
So-
it had I feel like it had a lot of dark themes.
Yeah.
We're gonna get to that. It was really
Yeah.
intense. What do you think, Nate?
I'm glad that they opened up the floodgates. So they really kind of gave us a good direction of where we're going. The past two episodes, we had no clue what was going on.
Yeah.
We had our thoughts and our opinions. And again, we hated Nick at first, but now we're seeing it from a different light. I mean, I remember the first episode, we were talking about the cuts that were on his hands, and we were talking about the crucifixion of Jesus, and like we had so many thoughts of supernatural, but now that they've brought that to the surface, kind of gives us a different perspective. We know where we're going. But yes, this scaredy cat over here, this isn't even a scary movie.
I know.
It's not a scary show at all.
I'm gonna give it to her. So
Listen, to each
there's
his own.
moments.
I know, to
everyone
each his
has
own,
their.
but I have to make fun of you for it.
I know,
All
every
right.
single
Well,
time,
we
but
can
it's fine.
make fun of her later as we break down this episode. So we open up this episode with this conversation with Jamie and Leela in the kitchen. She's about to have her baby anytime. And they have this very existential conversation about if Jamie believes in God or if she believes in God and kind of the existence of man and what our place is in this world. It got really deep, like in the first 3 minutes. What did you guys think of this moment?
I was very taken aback. I just wasn't expecting that to be where Jamie was coming from, but it was very interesting to hear his point of view. You know, what if we completely eliminated fear? What if we completely eliminated these set values that we put on ourselves? Like what could we really reach? What could we really achieve? I, on one hand, appreciate the values that have been instilled in me and, you know, the ethics that I have and all of that. But it was very interesting to hear his point of view. But for him to bring that up to his wife, like literally days before she is set to give birth, I was like, really, this is not the time.
It's
This
like
is not
there's like
the
kind of like a
time.
psychological game happening.
Yeah.
You know,
Like he's
he
testing
brings this
her.
up and kind of it shows that he's hesitant and scared to have this child, which I think is a normal thing for any parent or future parent to go through. But this kind of had a deeper meaning. Nate, what did you think of this conversation?
I have a lot of different opinions. I have a lot of different thoughts. One, I like how initially they showed kind of what goes on in our society, you know, and Leela kind of expressed how her dad didn't have a thought to even think this way. and she brings up his privilege, and I don't think that he was in it, because in my notes I wrote that Leela was very inconsiderate of his feelings, because he keeps saying that he's not in control of this. So he doesn't want to have these thoughts and these feelings of like, maybe I don't want this child. And he understands that the baby is coming any day now. He doesn't want this, but he's seriously going through this where he feels like he has to bring it up. And so at first I was like, she's being inconsiderate, but I understood her side as well. It's like, dude, you're complaining about things that people can't even think to complain about, because it's like their lives are so much more difficult than the privilege that you have right now to even think of these crazy and imaginable thoughts. On the other end, I also do appreciate the thoughts of living free and like what would you do and how would you live. I also think that a lot of us, I'm not a parent, so I really can't speak on this subject, but I think a lot of parents sometimes when they have children, they want their children to live through them so much that I need you to get a scholarship, or I need you to have good grades, and you got to stay out of trouble.
They live like vicariously
through them. But it's like if that child does get in trouble or that child does do something bad, they're more focused on that being an embarrassment to their self and what like their peers and like other parents may think of that parent than just really the true well-being of the child. So when he starts talking about like, are we really having this child because we are scared of dying and this is what's going to continue our legacy on, but when we die, this child still has to deal with dying his own self by himself alone. So there's so much.
There's so many issues there. And that's that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
I mean, throughout this episode, you had themes of like dealing with like deaths of fathers and just complicated relationship with parents. And then this is just an added factor of just becoming a parent and how complicated and how such a mix of emotions you can have while going on that journey, and especially in the first few days leading up to it. And then later in the episode, we'll talk about when the baby's born. It gets even more complicated. So Ambrose is like on the hunt for information about the accident. I feel like this episode was a little less about what happened with Nick and him and more about what's his like psychological well-being. And so we hear that Jamie attacked his college roommate. And so there's all this conversation. Ambrose talks to the dermatologist, kind of hears from someone else about Jamie's character and how he was kind of not in a right state of mind at that time. And so this gets to a point later in this episode where Ambrose receives this picture from the old roommate, and he sees this picture of him in this state. We're not sure what kind of state, but it looks eerie.
Like he's in a
scared.
trance.
He's in a trance. He's on the floor, and then we see written on the headboard of the bed, we see Ubermensch, which it was like scrawled with like his nails or a pen. It looked very, very scary. And so we talked a lot about this when we watched the episode. We're like, what does this mean? And we talked about the meaning of it, about a person who seems superhuman with these like astounding powers. And we learn a lot about how this German word means like overman or superman. And it comes from Nietzsche, the philosopher, and kind of his teachings of how people create their own reality, how God is dead, that you forge new values to live by, you conquer your fears, and you try to live at a higher level than man. So this was a lot to unpack. So here, Jamie is grappling with this idea of this new this philosophy that it seems like he's been living with for some time. So what do you guys think about this reveal and this ideology that has surfaced in this episode?
Well, I'm glad we kind of figured out what it was that has been haunting Jamie. I feel like I really wanted to know what that was the first 2 episodes, so I'm thankful that it finally came to light. But the feeling of, God is dead, being superhuman, and the fact that like Nazi Germany actually like used a lot of this theology to
the professor
to implement this is just, I mean, that says so much to me. I personally think that, values are necessary. I think just basic humanity and just being understanding and loving and caring and kind is so important. But I can understand wanting to reach levels and heights that you've never reached before, or that, you know, people have told you could never reach before. But I kind of wish it came from more of a positive place.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm very interested to dive into this theology a little bit more to understand what it really means. Like, are you out to help people, or are you out to hurt people?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
that's what I really think that Jamie's kind of grappling with as well. Is like, is this a good push, or is this a bad push? I think it's just a very thin line there.
It is. Yeah. I mean, I feel like this episode deals with kind of this energy and kind of this, like, how do you use your power? Like, it brings up the question, like, if you had a power of some kind, do you use it for good or do you use it for evil? And even if it's set in an ideology, like, obviously people have used it for bad things, but can you use it for good?
Exactly.
And so I feel like Jamie is grappling with this.
100%.
What do you think, Nate?
Well, I do like how you brought up the fact of how are they using it, and I don't think that this is something that is necessarily only that can be implemented for something negative. Maybe Jamie and Nick used it in the past for something that is negative and still maybe using it that way, but I don't think that it's completely something that's negative. It could be positive. But one of the main things, this is why I was so pertinent, like, I need to talk about the situation when he was sitting down with the girl.
With Emma, the college
yes,
student.
with Emma.
Or high school student.
And so when it comes to creating our reality, what I got from that episode, and this is something that I personally go through in my life, and I believe that the way that our society is constructed, especially here in America, yes, we have these things where it's like, this is the right thing to do. You should go to an Ivy League school, and that will give you the best life. But that's the reality of whoever created that reality. Right. That's not your own reality.
Yeah.
You
it's
know?
a construct that has been created for you by the society that you're living in.
Exactly. And the society has pushed that on you to make you think that this is the best reality that you want to live. And so I try to inspire people to not literally create their own reality where you're living in your own world, but create your own reality that you want to live in. You know, like, if you want to be a host and you want to be on Secrets,
Seriously,
that's what
Make
you
it
want
happen.
to
Seriously?
do.
That's where we're
Like,
going with
create
this?
that reality. And so when it comes to, like, this thing, like, I was really interested because, like, I want to be able to do that. I want to be able to disconnect from the reality that society has put onto us and have my own thing that I believe is right, I believe is true, and it doesn't have to be a negative thing. It's just what I personally believe in, you know?
Yeah, I totally see where you both are coming from. But in the case of Jamie, he's using it in a negative way. I mean, we see all of these kind of flashbacks, hallucinations. I'm not sure exactly how to what to call them at this point, but you could see even in the cinematography and the tone of the show that during these moments it turns to a gray, to a black. It kind of, time slows down. And so in this episode he had many moments where he just kind of loses track of time. He separates from reality. There was the moment when he almost walked in front of the bus he's having sounds like heartbeats and thuds that are triggers to these moments of, like, disassociating from what's happening in the moment. And it gets really scary down the road.
Let me push back on you real quick.
Yeah.
He is using it negatively, but I don't think he wants to use it negatively.
Yeah,
and that's why
a
he
good
keeps saying,
point.
like, this control that he has over him. I think that's what he's speaking on, is that, like, he knows that he has this power within him, but he can't use it for the positive. Like, it makes him do things that he doesn't want to do, you know? And then that's why I was excited about the episode. And it was revealing those things that we were just like, why is he standing? And didn't have that scene in this episode when he's standing on side of the building about to, like, jump off. Yeah. But he's like, why am I doing these things? He doesn't know. But it's like this power or whatever this...
Yeah, that was in the trailer.
You know, like, whatever it is, like, that is pushing him to do these things. He can't control it.
So speaking of that, is that control. So there's this confrontation that Ambrose has with Jamie in his neighborhood. He's sitting on the sidewalk. He, like, couldn't handle the baby crying. And they have this kind of heart-to-heart where Ambrose is like, I know what you did. And here are the steps. This is when I know exactly what you did. And Ambrose knows. And so says, like, has DNA. So has all these has all this evidence against Jamie. Jamie thinks, oh, you're not going to prove it. And he says, so Ambrose says, Nick has a hold on you. And, you could tell that Jamie wants to confess this thing. And so they have this confession. What do you guys think of this moment? Because I feel like he does, like you said, he doesn't want to be trapped in this moment. He's grappling with these feelings of like good and evil. What do you think of that this night?
Initially, I've been a Jamie fan, so I've always looking at it from like I feel bad for what he's going through. But what I think that he's in a position where no one understands what I'm going through. Yeah. And so you guys are all going to think I'm crazy no matter what I tell you.
He's hearing things, he's seeing Nick, he's, there's, if you went to anyone and said that,
you're crazy. You know what I'm saying? And even with his wife, and when we spoke about how he was speaking to her about what he was going through or just those thoughts. He was trying to get that information out to her, but he couldn't just say it. So he's like asking different questions about the baby, and she takes it completely the wrong way. You're crazy. I can't believe you're doing this. You're privileged. Like, so he has those feelings. So he's like inching, and he wants to reveal this to Ambrose. But again, Ambrose is the detective. You know, we're gonna get on to the time when we spoke about when he was in the medical facility, but he kind of caught on like, wait, you guys are trying to set me up. I'm out of here. So he wants to reveal these things. He wants to get to a place where he's expressing is really what he's going on, where he can't control, but he doesn't trust anyone right now, in my perspective.
Well, I feel like he also doesn't trust himself either.
And he shouldn't.
And so that gets to this moment of the episode, which is really terrifying, and we all had a visceral, like, physical reaction to this. I think I crawled under the table, and then you, like, closed your eyes.
But I watched the whole thing.
We had this moment. We all know, if you've watched the episode, Jamie was in the nursery, and he's hearing Nick. He's hearing Nick. Nick appears. He looks kind of brutal and has, like, this vicious look. And I don't know if it's a hallucination or it's a vision of Nick crushing the baby.
Yes. So horrific.
Horrific.
So horrific that, as you guys know, I could not watch the scene. So I don't know exactly what happened, to be completely transparent, because I wasn't watching. But just what I thought was very interesting too, though, was that Jamie handed over the baby.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is like, how could you hand over your child to this man who has caused you so much harm and so much drama,
and he's still terrified of Nick.
Yeah, what could be going on in your mind to release that type of power to someone who has such a control over you? And that really took me aback too. I was worried.
And as a parent, you want to protect your child as
at
much
all
as possible,
costs, right?
So exactly. So to do that is that are they trying to teach the baby the theology that he's been believing?
I think he said in the episode, like, he has to learn.
He has to learn, and like so it's like, well, how do you teach a 2-day-old baby?
Right, and learn what?
And learn exactly. Learn the lessons of life and death and pain.
Death. Like, what exactly are we trying to teach a 2-day-old baby boy?
Exactly. What do you think, Nate? I know you seem to be thinking.
I'm thinking because I really don't know. Yeah. I don't know the purpose of it. Like you guys said, he said, like, he has to learn. Learn what?
Exactly.
And this, like I said, this episode revealed a lot, and I'm actually happy that what they did reveal, but there's still so much more for them to reveal, I believe. Obviously, it's season 3. It is season 3.
Yep.
Episode 3. Yeah.
But so I don't know. I watched it. I didn't think he was going to do anything to the child. I thought that it was just going to be kind of a peaceful interaction.
I knew it was coming.
Yeah, it's called the sinner for a reason.
Well, I know, but I thought the first time, because this is the first time Nick interacted with the baby.
That's true.
So I thought that, like, they were going to make us think that he was going to do something crazy and not really do something.
Yeah, I mean, it made me question, like, the kind of the rules of this world, and, like, can people touch each other? Because I think in all the other hallucinations that he just saw him, but there was no, like, physical, maybe
I didn't
there was no physical interaction with anything in Jamie's world. So like I was like, oh, maybe they can't interact in that way, but they obviously had a moment.
Well, I mean, I guess you're right, because I mean, he didn't technically touch the baby, because even when, like, the wife,
he was on Jamie was on the floor with the baby in the end of that scene.
So but he didn't give the baby back to him, though.
Yeah, all of this is happening, like,
in his head. Yeah,
it's all happening
it's
in
true.
his head. He's not.
They're taking
there's
creative,
no, like, actual
creative storytelling.
But he was broke. Right. You can tell by the way that he fell to the ground.
Totally broken.
He was totally broken. He
was so disappointed in himself.
Yeah, and like you guys said, I don't know why he even gave it up in the first place, but it's that control, that hold on him.
Well, it goes back to that, like, later down in when he's talking to the doctor in the hospital about that terrifying feeling of like it could end in a second by like dropping the baby, and then like that feeling that it might be a relief. And I feel like that might be even a pretty realistic feeling that parents feel, that they have no control over what's happening.
Which is just so scary.
Yeah, but it's so scary. So speaking of scary, we have our special segment. The most sinister moment of the night.
Sinister
Take it away.
moment of the evening. Okay, so we all know that I think the crushing of a newborn, beautiful baby boy, 2 days old, was the most sinister moment in this episode. Usually the most sinister moment comes at the end, or the most shocking moment comes at the end, so I was very surprised that it came in the middle. But you know, that just crushed me. I think infants and babies and children are just off limits, but you know, the fact that he has that type of control over Jamie is just something I'm interested in finding more out about. But my second most sinister moment, if I may add, is the Porsche that was double parked. Remember?
Yes.
When the Porsche was double parked in the parking lot?
That's your most sinister moment?
That is one of my biggest pet peeves.
Nothing ever came from that.
So mad.
No, yeah, he was on the train.
He was
on the train.
He was gonna kill that
but
guy.
after that on the train, there's nothing happened though.
No, Jamie controlled himself.
He controlled himself, but that was a trigger.
I may not have been
that was
able
another
to.
Trigger. You think you would have found him on the train?
I would have done something. You're not gonna double park
Ashley's
and
being
then
a little sinister.
walk past me and be like, you can fit. No, sir. Move your car. Okay, so those are my 1 and 2 moments. I just had to add that because that really
So I'm not
going
to get in the way of your driving because I feel like you're going to get the road rage.
That's right. Don't be rude.
We will not be rude.
That actually happened to me recently, and yeah, I didn't say nothing.
Okay.
But I looked at her though.
Yeah, you did. All right. So we have a little side story in this episode with Detective Ambrose and Sonia, the neighbor, and so they're kind of like building the building blocks of like this new relationship, right? He keeps going over to her house, kind of learning about her paintings. She's caught for taking photos of Jamie at his school. What do you guys think of this?
I mean, I think she's just trying to get Detective Ambrose off her tail. Like, I think she's just trying to distract him from what's actually happening.
They go walking in the woods and have a
he's
moment.
Like, oh, like hold my, like one of us had to make the first move.
Yeah,
like she's just
little
trying
subtle
to,
kind of hints.
I don't trust Sonia, but I'm very interested in her as a character. But that was just a ploy, in my opinion. I think she was just trying to get.
I'm like, this is why I'm irritated today. Yeah, I'm sorry everyone, but I'm irritated.
Oh.
I remember her taking the pictures of Jamie, but I don't remember her getting caught. She got caught by Ambrose?
No, not taking photos.
Oh, I thought one of you guys just said that. I almost knocked this cup over. That would have been double the whammy. Bad. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Take it easy. Take it easy.
Okay, I'm good. No, Sonia though. I don't trust Sonia either. I think Sonia is the centerpiece of all of this stuff. We can talk about Jamie and this Uber bitch. Uber Mitch. However you say it. I'm gonna say it.
Uber Mensch.
Right. Uber Mensch. When I go home today, I'm gonna say it like 55 times so I never mess it up. Uber Mensch. Like whatever this Uber Mensch stuff is, I think it's a big thing, but I don't know if it's that big. I think Sonia.
So do you think she's like the orchestrator of all of this?
I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know if she set it all up.
We see these paintings of her like painting naked men.
Yes.
Men.
I just think that her relationship that she's building with Ambrose though is strictly to kind of get him off guard of like her whole plot, or just get into his mind of like, what is he finding out? Make sure I'm not the one that is the primary suspect or whatever. I have no idea, but she is the one.
Okay.
She is the key to all these. This whole
we'll get to predictions later, and maybe you're onto something there. So the end of this, the last like 10 minutes of this episode was wild. We have Jamie shows up so visibly upset at the police station. He tells the Detective Ambrose that he's trying to hold it together, and here I thought he was going to admit everything. You know, it felt like one of those moments. But Ambrose decides to take him to a mental health facility or to the hospital. And in the car, Jamie pretty much says, Nick has infected me and I can't get rid of it. And I feel like that's an interesting way of putting it. What do you think about that?
Well, it brought me back to when the professor was talking about, when you stare into the gaze start.
The abyss.
It starts to stare back at you.
Yeah.
And so it just made me think of like when you open those floodgates and you let those demons or whatever it is in, like you just have to, anything could happen.
Yeah, I love that quote from the professor because he talks about, like you said, I think the official quote was, if you gaze long enough into the abyss will gaze back into you.
Exactly.
And
it
what
just becomes you.
I felt like that was super symbolic because Nick seems to be this abyss that Jamie can't get rid of, and Jamie just keeps staring back at this reflection.
But you like let it
this
in.
darkness,
like
but he keeps letting it in. And so this leads into him at this moment at the hospital. And I feel like in the beginning, Jamie isn't really sure of what's going to happen. I feel like he felt that, I assumed that he was going to like commit himself, and that was what he was doing. But he has this whole conversation with this doctor as he's getting evaluated. And this is where we really get insight into what his mindset is at. He talks about how he has this feeling all the time that he's trapped, that there's this big thing looming over him, and he's the only one that can see it. How do you guys feel about this? What does this do for you,
I think
Nate?
that was him trying to express himself, but knowing I can't fully express who I am right now. So when he said this thing looming over me, in my perspective, all he was talking about was Nick. But he couldn't tell them, I'm seeing Nick grabbed my baby and just crushed my baby. Like, he can't say that because you're crazy.
But he didn't even admit when the doctor asked, do you see things? Do you hear, like, he...
Well, okay, so back to the Ubermensch.
Ubermensch, yes.
Very good.
Back to that, okay, and the superhuman thing. I think that, again, it's not always something negative. He because he has this superhuman ability, he knows that they're running some type of game on him right now where if he says a certain thing, they will admit him, they will hold him involuntarily. So he starts to notice that where he's like, okay, you're asking really weird questions. I'm not going to answer this question like this because you're going to hold me. And then that's when, of course, gets up, runs out.
Yeah, I mean, but he talks about his, like, suicidal thoughts, and we know that he's been having them. He wants... because he doesn't want to like avoid the pain, so he's talking about that. There's so many layers here, and he's talking. And then here he brings up like the baby breaking on the floor, that it would be a sense of like relief and being free, and being that pain is the gateway, which is like super heavy, and that like not being able to control your impulses. He's like afraid of this, so. I love this line where he's talking about how we all feel this and that we all should be locked up.
Yeah.
How do you feel about this, Ashley?
I feel like it just goes to that gray area again. It's about like knowing the difference between right and wrong. But when you keep it so gray and wishy-washy, it's just like, well, I had an impulse to do it. It felt right at the time. Yeah. This is what I was told to do. This is what and that when you open those floodgates open, the good and the bad.
It's like Pandora's box. You're opening all of these things.
Everything.
Emotions, actions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you have to be ready to handle the good and the bad, the positive and the negative, because it's all going to come to you once you, start playing those games.
Yeah, you're playing. Yeah, Nate, what do you think?
A couple things kind of hit me on this one. One, again, he was kind of playing back to that he kind of had this feeling that they were trying to set him up to either lock him down or whatever. And so his perspective was, if, like, we all go through this and have these thoughts and feelings. So if I express this to you right now and you think that you can lock me up, I know you guys go through it as well. And so I think it touched, I guess, America, lack of a better term, because we all have these...
Humanity.
I mean, it's not just America. It's everyone.
I just thought about America right now.
It's everyone. You're right. Everyone has these feelings.
Yeah, like we have these feelings. We all have negative thoughts. We all have similar type of feelings and emotions that are part of us. And so I think it kind of was talking because we judge people so much as a society. We're so quick to judge people. We're so quick to throw people under the table, and we all have issues. We all and it goes back to the saying in the Bible, like, how dare you point out a speck in someone else's eye when we all have a log in our own eye, and I think that's kind of what he was kind of going for, was like, we all are this negative person, but you guys are looking at me like I'm crazy right now. Well, we're all crazy and we're all going to go through it.
Yeah.
And I'll save the second part for the predictions.
All right. Well, it really was it brings up a lot of deep themes, a lot of deep issues that I feel like people battle with every day. And so it's just a good reminder to like check in with people that you love, check in with each other, because
check in with yourself.
Check in with yourself, because you never know if someone is having any of these thoughts. So it's an important reminder, even though we're watching an entertaining, dramatic show, it's a good
definitely
a good reminder.
Definitely.
So quickly, we have like a short amount of time. What are your predictions for? We got a quick clip of episode 4.
TV predictions.
What do you think, Ashley? What's going to happen next week?
So, next week we're really going to dive into Sonia. We're going to figure out exactly what piece she is to this puzzle, and she is a big one. I can just feel she knows a lot more than she's letting on to know. So I just think we're going to get a glimpse of who she is.
A slow build, yeah. What about you, Nate? What's your predictions?
I agree with you in a way, but I'm going to disagree with you just because you took away my thing. I don't think we're ready for Sonia yet. I think Sonia's going to come in a couple more episodes.
Okay.
I think next episode is going to be more on Ambrose, because I know that in some preview I did see a strong connection of something that Ambrose did in his past that kind of correlates and goes along with Jamie's story. And so they actually build a deeper bond than just kind of what they just built the end of this episode. And so, even how he was like, let's go talk just me and you. I think that they're going to show a lot more of Ambrose and kind of show his past more, and Jamie and his relationship are going to develop more. Sonia, of course, we'll see more of her.
Yeah.
But I also think that it's going to be just those two. Like, that's going to be the main thing, their relationship developing and that kind of expanding.
It's going to be so exciting. I feel like the third episode, as you said, just opened the doors to
Pandora's
more
box.
Drama and intrigue. So where can people find you on social media?
I am at Ashley Dior Jones on all social media platforms, so check me out.
Nate Harris here. You can find me at Royal Nate _ okay? ROYAL Nate _ Don't forget the underscore, please. Gosh.
All right, everyone. You can find me on all social media platforms at Emily May Heller. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Sinner After Show. We can't wait to join you next week. Buzz you later.
Buzz you later.
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.